show. Appreciate you joining me as always, and I'm back in the building. Excited for another great show. We've got an awesome lineup today. I've got two callers that are going to be calling in that are going to do a wonderful job, as they always do. None other than David Harrison, covers the Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated. He'll be on the show. And then a little bit later on, my little brother, as I call him, we go way back. My good friend, Mr. DJ Bland, does a great job covering the NFC South in the NFL. Has worked for USA Today, also about.com. I mean, he's done it all. So I'm going to have those two gentlemen on shortly. And then for the whole second half an hour of our program, the bottom half, we're going to have a good friend of mine that I actually went to high school with, Mr. Eddie Allen. Does a lot of different things. He's a comedian too, so we're going to have some fun in here. And we need that during these type of days because there's not a lot going on. You know, you obviously, I'm sure some of you, when you wake up, you see all the news out there. Terry McLaurin's going to get traded and all these things. And I'm here to refute all that stuff for you guys. I'm here to let you know, don't believe everything you read, everything you see. Come to the people who are in the building, who are in the know. And obviously when David Harrison comes on with me, we're going to talk about that too. You know, I'm going to get his take on some of this stuff and what does he feel when he sees this stuff when we wake up, you know, because for me, it's just like, man, is it really that quiet that there's nothing going on, that this is what we do? So when he comes on, we'll talk about that. If you would like to call in on the program, it's very easy. All you have to do is call us at 1-800-450-7676. And then also, you can subscribe to this show, the Lake Lewis Jr. Show, on all of your major podcast carriers. You can also watch it on YouTube. So there's several ways for you to be able to get your fix for the show. Now, let's get right into it, because all last week, all I kept saying was Terry McLaurin's going to get traded. First, he was going to get traded to New Orleans. Then he was going to get traded to Pittsburgh. I think fans have to start to understand what's sold for a lot of people over the years. You know, for the last, 20 years, not last year, but the previous 20 years. What sold? And what sold was the Washington Redskins or the Washington Commanders. And what sold was the negative news. It was fodder. It was stuff for people who don't cover the team, who I've never seen on a practice field out in Ashburn ever. But they were always putting the news out in the narrative, and people were believing it. So I think this is the first time in a long time, as we enter a season where there's super high expectations, where this team is a Super Bowl contender. And I've said it over and over and over. Yes, they are a Super Bowl contender, a legit contender. Not to have a shameless plug, but I actually wrote about it, and you can read the article on heavy.com, where I mentioned 4 reasons why this team's a true contender. Well, they are. And I think now that it's throwing some people for a loop, frankly. It's throwing some colleagues for a loop, because there's nothing negative to sell anymore. Nothing. If the only thing that you can talk about right now is Terry McLaurin not having his extension yet, that's good stuff. That means the organization's doing some things right. They're not having players in trouble. There's none of that stuff going on. There's no more dark cloud hanging over the organization. And I will say this again. The contract will get done with Terry. The way these things work, they always happen on the eve or close to the start of training camp. Training camp's in 3 weeks now, because today's the 1st. So 3 weeks from now, all this stuff will be over and void. It'll be done. Terry McLaurin will be in the burgundy and gold. I just, for the life of me, could not understand or see why Adam Peters, who's done a great job, everything that he and Dan Quinn have touched so far since they've been in Washington, has turned to gold. I could not understand for the life of me why anyone would think that Adam Peters would want to trade away the one constant for this organization over the last 6 years. It's Terry McLaurin. He's been the face of the organization. He's done everything right on and off the field. And you want to reward a player like that, especially when you're trying to establish a sustainable culture, and that culture being of loyalty, of winning, of guys being selfless. So those are the things that you want. So now we're going to take our we have a caller coming in, so we want to get our caller on the line. Caller, are you there? All right, so we're still waiting for the caller. I think they're there now. Caller, are you there with us? All right.
What's up, Lake?
Hey, what's going on? Dave, what's going on, my friend?
How are you?
I'm good. Listen, folks, this is the guy that I was telling you about, that I'm telling you I couldn't wait to talk to you, David, because every time I get up, every time I turn on something, every time I, open my phone up, my apps, it's Terry McLaurin's getting traded. How tiring are you of seeing this stuff?
I mean, it goes hand in hand, right? Dead season, contract dispute, all that stuff. Like, anytime there's a contract dispute or a holdout, that's the first thing that people start doing is talking about, what team could trade for him, what team would want him, what would it cost, all this stuff. So it's not really surprising. But, yeah, I mean, I think, like most of the fan base, I'm sure, ready for the speculation to be over, find out what the figure is going to be, get the deal done so we can just enjoy training camp and look forward to hopefully another double-digit win season, a playoff run, and, who knows, maybe a parade at the end of it.
Folks, right now, David Harrison does a great job covering the Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated. You can also check David out. He's got a great podcast that you can check out, too, Locked On Commanders, part of the Sports Illustrated network as well. You remember last year, we were sitting in that media room, that media tent in blazing hot weather for the first day of training camp, and you remember what happened, right? Someone walked in and there was an announcement to be made, and it was that Sam Cosmi had signed his contract. This seems to be the norm, David. When you look around the league and there's a lot of other big name players that haven't signed yet and they're quote unquote holding out, most of these things get rectified literally right around the eve of training camp, or if anything, the week leading up to it. Is that what you're thinking is going to happen with Terry here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you mentioned, it's going to get done. I anticipate it might be the day before or the morning of, like you said, like we might find out, that it's a done deal. At a minimum, I mean, you know how this team does it, man. And it doesn't matter if you're a new free agent coming in, a draft pick. They want to make sure that everybody understands it's a family deal. It's a brotherhood deal. They're not going to want Terry to come into that building to sign his new contract until he can be welcomed the way that he should be welcomed and congratulated, the way he should be congratulated. And, we were there. We talked to Dan Quinn before they broke for mandatory minicamp. This is the time the coaching staff gets to kind of take a break a little bit, step away for a second, recharge the batteries, come back for training camp fresh. So, while they're all, scattered out there doing their thing, they're not going to want Terry to come into an empty building and re-sign, with the team. So it's going to be done right. And that unfortunately for, those of us who are impatient, it means it's going to be done, at least closer to training camp, if not the day of.
And I think, David, people think that Adam Peters is sitting up in the building right now, just not wanting to sign something or not wanting to get this thing done. And I keep trying to tell him, if there's anything that we've learned from Adam Peters over these past, year and a half, 2 years, it's that, one, he wants to win at all costs. Secondly, he's building a culture, he and Dan Quinn. They're building a culture, and don't you think they'd want to reward the one constant that this organization has had in all these lean times, Terry McLaurin? So clearly we know this is getting done. I guess the magic question is that a couple of weeks ago I was saying, not that – okay, let me rephrase this, David, because, a lot of people were coming at me about this. I said that I thought that Terry, it could be 36 to 37 million. And people were like, you're crazy. That would make him the second highest paid receiver in football. And I said it doesn't mean he's the second best receiver in football, because I don't think he is. I think number one is Jamar Chase. Number two is Justin Jefferson. However, each receiver over the last 4 years who signed an extension has had a record-breaking number, and it's because of the market. This is the second straight season the salary cap's gone up for the NFL. It's over $50 million compared to where it was 2 years ago. So do you feel like Terry could get more money than he's necessarily worth in order to get this done?
Yeah, and I mean, and value is, it's really fun, when you talk to agents about this kind of stuff, because it's not just where does that contract rank right now, but it's where's that contract going to rank a year from now, 2 years from now, right? Especially when you're talking about like an extension. If you're talking about an extension to where you're tacking on 3 new years onto the year that Terry currently has, well, these new numbers don't actually take into effect until 2026.
Exactly.
So in 2026, this new contract, which may rank second right now, by the time 2026 actually arrives, that contract may be third or fourth. And then in 2027, it's fifth or sixth, right?
Yeah.
And so when you look at these contracts, it's important to remember, and I know, I'm preaching to the choir with you, but like to anybody who doesn't quite understand why agents come at it this way. Is like, it's not just about the right now value, it's about the depreciation of the contract. Because T. Higgins, listen, T. Higgins is a very talented guy, not the 9th best receiver in the National Football League, but right now he's the 9th highest AAV. In a couple of years, that'll be 12, 13, 14, and you look up the rankings, you're like, oh, okay, T. Higgins is right around where he needs to be. But the initial part of that contract is going to be elevated because that's just how the market ebbs and flows, and that's why you see, like, Trey Hendrickson, that situation exploding the way that it has, because every new contract rises all the tides for in that position group. So, yeah, like, I think Terry, I think your number is not all that, fantastic. I think that 36.5 is probably like my ceiling for him. I think right around DK Metcalf is the number, but I think 32.5 is the floor personally. I mean, if he came in anywhere under 32.5, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, because, you see some people putting out there that 30 is the talking point. That should not be the talking point. It should be 32 because let's face it, when you look at some of the other numbers from some of the other receivers, and you just said, T. Higgins as an example, I think you can make an argument that Terry's had a better career than DK at this point. I mean, if you just look at sheer consistency, maybe didn't have the fanfare of DK coming out and all those things when he was coming out of Ohio State because he played with all those other great receivers. But all he's done since he's been in Washington is carve out his name. He's self-made, so he's not one of these guys that was expected to be the player that he is. He's self-made, and I think he's everything that you want your football player to be, especially if you're Dan Quinn or Adam Peters. So that's why I keep telling fans, don't, get off that bridge. It's no reason for you to worry about it. It's going to be okay. The number is going to have to be a number that obviously both of them will take. One thing you and I both know about Terry, he wants to win. And he hadn't been winning in Washington. He was winning, national championships and all those things, or playing for him at Ohio State. We saw last year in that locker room, and you can tell our listeners, because I've been saying, and I think sometimes they think I'm lying about this, but Terry never stopped smiling last year.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I've never seen Terry McLaurin as happy as he was last year. I mean, I remember talking to him specifically after that Monday night win over the Bengals, man. I mean, I'm asking him a question, and he's like cheering for his own team as I'm asking him the question, because we're talking about all these drives in a row with no punts and all these points that they're putting up and everything else, and he's just like almost like a fan, like he's part of the production.
Yeah.
But he has been struggling with this team so much that even in the midst of all that output that they were starting to pull off with that Bengals game, like even he almost couldn't. It was almost like he was on the outside looking in at it and appreciating it as well. So, yeah, I mean, there's nothing Terry wants more, than to be with this organization, to ball out with Jane Daniels and all that stuff. And I think when you see those reports that, like, he's a little frustrated that the urgency that the team was taking forward, that's what it boils down to. Like, he wanted to be out there for OTAs. He wanted to be out there at mandatory minicamp, and that's the competitor in him, you know what I mean? But
right.
At the same time, we all know, I know, like, is it more important for Terry McLaurin to get reps in OTAs, or is it more important for Jalen Lane to get reps, for Debo to get more reps, for Luke McCaffrey to get more reps? We know it's more important for those guys to get those reps at OTAs than it is for Terry, so there's no concern about the timeline.
Yeah, and so everyone listening right now I'm talking with David Harrison from Sports Illustrated, does a great job covering the Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated. You can check out his podcast at Locked On Commanders. So, when you go back and you think now of this team and the fact that we feel like we're getting ready to cover a Super Bowl caliber football team, how does that change your approach? And I wanted to ask you that because I know I'm going to have to change my approach just a little bit, not much, because we always try to do positive stories on these players, but how does it change your approach as far as just getting ready for training camp that's coming up?
For me, it's always interesting because, like, you talk about the life cycles of a team, and, you got teams out there that, the barometer of how well is this team developing is just how much effort they put in. And, fans hate hearing that. It's like, yeah, the guys tried really hard for, 4 quarters, guys. Give them a break or whatever. But then you have the teams that, they're beating who they're supposed to be. They're competing against some teams that they're not supposed to beat. Now this year, you expect this team to be one that comes out and beats all the teams they're supposed to, but also can handle some of the teams they're not, quote unquote, supposed to. So,
right.
You don't expect an embarrassing performance against the Philadelphia Eagles. Thursday night in Lambeau against Green Bay Packers shouldn't be too much for this team, things like that. And in training camp, it just has to kind of pass the sniff test, right? Like the joint practices, you know this, like, you know, joint practices against the Patriots, joint practices against the Ravens, that's going to show us a lot about this team.
Yep.
But really it's just, does this team look on the field better than what we saw the last time we saw them practicing on the field, or at least more cohesive? And I think that when you look at the way Jaden came into OTAs, the connection that he and Zach have already been showing in 11-on-11s and 7-on-7s, and the way that Debo is mixed in, Luke McCaffrey taking a stride, like the things that you can pick out that could be improved at this stage of the offseason and the preseason already look that good, where you have confidence that they're becoming that team. So you just want to see that improved in training camp. And you know this, man, first day of pads
was popping. Exactly. And I'm looking forward to that, because I think you and I, we both know now that this team, the depth on this team is there. It's real now. You know, we've kind of flirted with it over the past couple seasons, but now it's legit. Like there's probably going to be a couple surprise cuts this year, you know, and I think the fans may have to start getting used to that, because that's what happens when you have really good football teams. Somebody can't make the roster. That's just the way it goes.
Yep, that is the earmark of a good team, is you look at the roster and you're like, man, I don't know who you're going to cut. And I don't know, you know, I already did this, actually. I did like a way too early 53-man roster projection.
Super way early.
You guys off. And at the end of the episode, I was like, look, there's some guys here that I even I'm sitting there, I'm like, how did I leave this guy off the roster? But I asked my audience, I was like, if you agree, that's fine, but tell me who you're taking off the roster to put that guy back on there. Because one of those guys was Nick Bellore, and I was like, how did I have Nick Bellore not making this roster? Because
I said
like,
the same
you and I both
thing.
know, unless he gets injured, this dude's making the roster.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so how do I not have Nick Bellore on this roster as special teams ace? But I looked at the roster, I'm like, but who am I going to take off of it? And at that point in the offseason, I'm like, I'm not going to sweat it too much, because again, it's way too early. But when it comes
there's
time
going to
for
be some
actual
surprises.
day, like, those are some of the decisions that Adam Peters is going to have to make, and they're going to be hard, but that's what you want.
Yeah, that goes to show you that you've taken a step and you've increased your talent pool. So, David, appreciate you joining me, my friend. I kept you on a little bit longer than anticipated, but you know you're more than welcome to come on here anytime. And over the next 3 weeks, you know, just relax, man, because we're about to be in that brutal heat real soon.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you.
All right. Take care, brother. All right, folks. That was David Harrison. Does a great job covering the Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated, and also has a great podcast on Locked On Commanders. So make sure you can check that out. You can check him out on YouTube with this podcast as well. So now we have our second guest ready to come on with us, and that's my little brother, as I like to call him, Mr. DJ Bland. Does a great job covering the NFL, the NFC South, and I want to get his take on a couple teams from the NFC South. So what's going on, DJ?
What's going on, man? How's it going?
I'm hanging in there, brother, hanging in there. Just had our friend David Harrison on with us just now. Just wrapped up talking a little bit of Commanders, but I wanted to get you on today to get your take on a team down south where you are that I think might be, you know, one of these teams that people may have to look out for. And I want to get your take on the Atlanta Falcons with Michael Penix in year number 2. Do you feel like that's a team that could be dangerous if Penix plays up to his potential?
Yes. You know, the biggest problem they had last year was mobility from Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, their line isn't spectacular, but with his mobility, it should help out tremendously, because I felt like Kirk was holding on to the ball a little bit too long and kind of putting his offensive line in a disability, basically.
Right.
With that running game, with his ability,
Bijan Robinson,
be dangerous in this division, which is wide open.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Bijan Robinson's a great running back. You know, one of the I probably would put him in the top 5 right now as far as backs in the league. I think he's ascended that well. And if you pair him, obviously, with a Michael Penix who can beat you with his legs, although we know from his history in college, you know, he had a couple knee injuries. He was in Indiana before he transferred to Washington. So he's not a quarterback that wants to run. We know that. But he's still able enough to be able to extend some plays if he has to do that. My question is Drake London, are there receivers like really top flight in your mind, or is that a position that they could even upgrade?
I think they should upgrade. Drake London can't be the only guy that can make the plays. I like Darnell Mooney a lot, but he's not a solid number 2, in my opinion.
Okay.
Not consistent enough. He's a little bit small, and when you're going against the league's best corners on the outside, it shows up on tape. And with the fact that you don't have Kyle Pitts really, contributing as a receiver, you need another solid outside guy. I think Mooney's great in the slot, but not as number 2.
I mean, there's even talk of Kyle Pitts being moved. That's just how much of a disappointment he's been, so to speak. When he came from Florida, people were expecting for him to, maybe change the tight end game. They were thinking that he was that athletic and, could be one of the next wave of new age tight ends, and it just hasn't happened. So you would like to see him be able to rebound. But let's talk about another team in the NFC South, because obviously the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a team that has won that division numerous years consecutively. They lose, their offensive coordinator. But I still think Baker Mayfield's finally found his home and he's comfortable there. I still think that Tampa's the cream of the crop in the division. What do you think?
Yeah, they have to be considered that. With the way that they've performed over the last couple of years, Baker's done an excellent job there. I don't think they'll miss their offensive coordinator very much there.
You've been saying that a while. You're not a fan of Liam at all, are you?
I'm not really a fan of him. I don't know if he's going to be a leader of men. That's the question.
Okay.
Nobody doubts the fact that he can draw up an offense. I mean, we saw that there last year, especially with what they've been able to do.
And even with the Rams before that.
I'm concerned about the leader of men side of it.
Yeah. I mean, and he's in Jacksonville now as the head coach there, and I expect their offense to be much better in Jacksonville. But, that is going to be an interesting question. We've seen over the years, DJ, you and I go way back to, USA Today and About.com, all these places. And we've seen really great coordinators on both sides of the ball, defense and offense. When they get their opportunity to now lead 53, it's a no-no. They can't get it done because now they have to delegate so much of themselves to every facet of a football team. It just doesn't work for everyone.
It doesn't, and it's the thing of how do you build your staff? And I think a lot of guys who come in a position are a little bit afraid of bringing in guys that may have a little bit more, get up about them and may be a little bit better as far as leadership of men. And I think that's a negative. I mean, you see what's going on in Washington there. Dan Quinn is not afraid to bring in guys that have the same, if not sometimes maybe more experience than him.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of these young coaches fall by the wayside. You got to have people that are experienced around you. That's only going to speed up your process as a head coach, and you can learn from those guys who have kind of been there and done that. Take a look at a guy like Joe Gibbs, who he surrounded himself with. He was a young coach as well. So I just think sometimes these guys go in here and they're a little bit nervous about hiring people that might be better than them, but you can't hire people that are just like you, green, and have never been here and done that. It doesn't usually work out well, and we see that a lot in this league.
How do I have the, the foresight to see? It sounds to me like you're talking a lot about Dion too, and I say that because people who have been asking me all along, why did Shador drop? Was it Dion? And I'm like, of course it was Dion. And they're like, well, no. He's, and I'm like, no, he's being a great dad, which most should be doing, supporting your kid. But I always thought there was more layers to this, DJ. And my layer to this is that if you are a coach right now in the NFL and you're on the hot seat, why would you want to draft a quarterback that could have his dad coaching him in a year if things don't go well? So when people keep asking, what is it? I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a big issue because I think he has the ability to be a head coach in the NFL. He has all the leadership capabilities. Most importantly, his know-how of the game, but he also is a no-nonsense guy and doesn't get swayed or shrink back when the moment is big as a head coach and when you have to answer tough questions. And you're right. If you're a head coach that is on a hot seat, maybe you're looking for that next contract, and you don't perform well, you feeling that pressure.
Yeah, because you are a guy, and folks, I'm talking with DJ Bland, does a great job covering the NFL. You can check him out on sportsjourney.com. And, like I said, he's been around doing it big. I'm proud of you and everything you're accomplishing, man. And, you are a guy that also lives and breathes at the Senior Bowl, at all these showcases. And you tell me, were there 3-4 quarterbacks better than Shedeur from what you saw out there?
No.
Of course not.
No.
So when you saw him falling, I mean, it just had to have been like, what in the heck is going on here? Like, and you don't want to play the race card and none of that stuff, but you do have to start taking all this stuff into consideration. Like, why did he fall? Is it because he was entitled? Some people were saying he was an entitled rich kid. I've seen a lot of them before.
Exactly.
And they got drafted number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. So that's not a good excuse. And then I was, told, his dad is meddlesome. He's too involved. I saw that with the Manning family. And
exactly.
So that doesn't.
You're going to see that with Arch, too.
With Arch as well, coming up next year from Texas. So that's not good enough excuse for me either. So what was it? And I clearly start to think, if you take the real poison here, I do think it was because some people didn't want Deion sniffing around their facility, knowing that he could oust them if they don't perform next year.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And I also think a lot of it, too, is, it's real funny how these confident black men get treated at quarterback in this league. Yeah, and especially in the draft process. That was one thing I noticed with Jaden Daniels and how the Giants treated him during that session that they had with him that was shown on Hard Knocks. I thought it was quite disrespectful, but it's not surprising.
He couldn't read a defense. Remember, he couldn't read a defense, and he wasn't prepared. Right. That's what was said. And, the irony is that was the same thing that was said about Shedeur, too.
Yep.
So I mean, hey, man, look, this is what it is. We've been told we haven't been prepared before, but I don't use notes for all my stuff. It's off the top of my head, but I'm not prepared. So again, that stuff, it does infuriate me. It really does. And one thing I've always respected about you, DJ, is that, years ago, I don't want to date us on how old we are, but we both said if we have a platform and we have an opportunity to just get people to think, rationally, we were going to do that. And, so whenever people were bringing up this whole Shedeur thing, which they have a lot to me, what was the reason? I clearly think that was the reason. Clearly it wasn't because the kid's no good, because he's a really good football player. So much so, let me get your take on this in like 2 minutes or so. Do you think Shedeur is going to be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns this year, opening day?
I say, look at their quarterback room. Outside of, Joe Flacco, that's not a long-term start.
No.
You wasted a draft pick on the Gabriel kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kenny Pickett, what has he shown outside of
nothing?
What he did with the Eagles? And you know what? Let's go back to Nick Foles on that. Nick Foles looked good in that offense over there. Mm-hmm. And then when he went somewhere else, what did he look like?
Yeah.
So, if he's not starting, that shows you what type of organization that is. I think if Nick Stefanski is honest with himself, I think you got to start the young man there. And maybe you have Joe Flacco start a couple games, but I think he has to start day one.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say, like, if you're a betting person, and I'm not condoning people out there do that if you're going to lose your money, but if you are a betting person, I would tell you at some point this year, Shedeur Sanders clearly will be starting for the Cleveland Browns. And for my money, I think it's going to be week 1. I just think that you're going to see some things that he can do that makes him the perfect fit for their offense.
Exactly. I do too.
All right. Well, look, my friend, I appreciate you spending some time with me this morning. I know it's hot down there for sure, but
It is.
yeah, it was warm up here too. But I'm not going to compare it to down in Georgia. I understand it's a little different type of heat down there, but I definitely appreciate you coming on and enjoy these next 3 weeks because it's about to get real serious real soon. So appreciate you, fam, as always.
Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, folks, that was DJ Bland. Does a great job breaking down the NFL and the NFC South, covers the Atlanta Falcons down in Georgia. And on occasion, make the trip to Jacksonville and, check them out. But we weren't talking AFC South. We were talking NFC South today. Didn't talk much about New Orleans, but there's a reason for that. So we'll talk about them at another time, another date. But now I'm getting ready to do something that I've been looking forward to doing. I'm going to bring in a friend of mine that went to high school with me, and he is actually a comedian, a jack of all trades, Mr. Eddie Allen. What's going on, Ed? What's up, man?
What's going on, Nate?
I appreciate you spending some time coming into the studio today. This is right around the area where we used to wreak havoc, so everyone doesn't know this, but I transferred schools in high school, whatever, but I graduated from John F. Kennedy High School, which is right up the road, right up Georgia Avenue off Randolph Road and Silver Spring. So I'm sitting in Silver Spring now. So this is
full circle.
Yeah, man. It is. And this guy right here, a budding comedian doing some great stuff as well. I'm not going to even ask you if you're a Commanders fan.
Oh, no, Lake. I'm not a big Commanders fan. I'm more of a fantasy football fan and Dallas Cowboy. But other than that,
you're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but I have to follow the Commanders, man, because I'm a DC guy, and I love Jayden Daniels. I mean, he's
going to convert a lot of you guys.
He is.
If you're not a Commanders fan, Jayden might convert you. I've already seen some people they're on the brink right now and they make excuses. Oh, it's because my husband follows them or my brother-in-law. No. It's because you see someone that you want to cheer for because he's a good dude.
I'm on the brink. On the brink. I would like to, if he could go to Dallas and take over Dak's spot. That'd be fantastic.
No. See,
can we have
first of all,
one season?
I got to tell you this. That kind of talk could get you banned on my show. like it really could get you banned on the show. We can't do that.
Of course not. I understand.
But I am NFL media now, so I can't. It's not just Commanders, so I can't. It's tough, man. Like someone told me that if I had an assignment to cover the Giants and the Cowboys, and I literally. Was like, I can't do that. Yeah. But
you gotta be unbiased.
But I have to be unbiased. That's part of the territory. But when we're on my show, it's a little different.
Gotcha.
We don't talk Cowboys on this show,
no
so
problem,
not in
man.
this area. So,
hey, man.
All right, so
I can talk Commanders. I love them though. There's some great guys over there.
So you back in the day, you hooped and you played football. You did it all, man. So like who are like, if I were to put you on the spot and ask you for a Mount Rushmore of NFL players, your top 4 players all time. They don't have to just be wearing burgundy and gold, but I just mean overall. What would you say?
Oh, I definitely have to go number one, Tony Dorsett. Tony Dorsett was one of my favorite players. It's one of my favorite players. I'm sorry, man. And well, I'll give you one of your favorites. I'm sure. Doug Williams.
Okay.
Doug Williams. That is my guy too.
Okay.
Man.
Okay. I can live with that.
First black quarterback. I was very proud of him and what the Skins did back in those days.
87. Okay.
Okay. Definitely, I have to go back to the Cowboys again. Hey, Tony Hill.
Thrill Hill.
Yes.
Okay. Now you're dropping some old school names. Yeah. That's what's up.
Well, like I said, I'm an old school guy, man.
Yeah, Tony Hill was great. I mean, he used to torment Washington. I remember that. Him and Preston Pearson and Drew Pearson.
Yes.
They were loaded. Yes. Yeah, they had some stuff. So, for the sake of the show, you can't have a 4th person be from the Cowboys.
No. I'm going with a running back, and I'm going with Marshall Faulk.
Really?
He is one of my fun. I mean, he is a receiver. He's a running back. He was just one of the greatest shows on turf.
Yeah, he was part of that.
I thought he was phenomenal. He really was one of my favorite players out there.
Not bad. I remember Marshall Faulk when he was at San Diego State.
Yes.
With the Aztecs, and they had the big shoulder pass, but we had big shoulder pass.
We had big shoulder pass. It was hard to catch on those shoulder passes.
It was. Like I tell people all the time, these guys now can extend their arms over their head. We couldn't do that. You were lucky if you could get to like 60-degree angle, and then that was it. So yeah, man. But Marshall Faulk, I remember him at San Diego State, and he was, you got to go on YouTube for these, and you might not get a lot of footage from Marshall Faulk at San Diego State, but he was Reggie Bush before Reggie Bush.
He was.
The same type of style, the same running, the cutting, the juking. Like this guy was, he was that
phenomenal.
dude.
He was up for the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, he was.
Top three, top four.
But they weren't going to give it to someone from San Diego State.
No,
sorry.
No.
That's just. I mean, I hate to say it like that. It was a lot of politics way back then in football, and they didn't want to prop up someone that didn't go to like one of the money makers, so to speak.
One of the blue bloods.
One of the blue bloods.
Football.
I really don't know what that must feel like for those people because, I haven't gone to Penn State.
You're a blue blood.
That's what we do. I had to get the "we are" in there if you're out there right now.
I got to throw Hampton University in there. I mean, we're not big on football, but
But y'all have come up.
Rick Mahorn.
Yeah, Hampton has come up.
Yes,
I just had a
Big Sky Conference now.
Yeah, and I think I can say this. I just had a little nephew. Recently go over for Alpha. At Hampton. Yeah, so we went to when he went over. So congratulations, Zach. So Caden. That's my dude. So yeah, I did get a chance. That was actually the first time I was on Hampton's campus.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It really is.
Yes.
And like I was just like, wow, this is phenomenal, and it's
home
not
by
too.
The sea.
I was gonna say, and it's not too far from the water.
It's not.
That's what's up,
man. It's fantastic, man.
That's what's up.
The whole Hampton Roads area. It's very pleasant down there.
So let me ask you, when you now that you're a comedian, you're doing your thing.
Yes.
What got you into that? I remember in high school you used to tell jokes all the time and stuff like that. But how did it like really take you far? Like this is your thing.
Well, I'm a big on making people happy. I'm a very affable guy. Try to stay happy, and I like to see people happy. I like to see people laugh.
Like that.
So if I can give a little bit of my life and show a little bit of my story, and if people can relate, and if it can bring a little sunshine or a little happiness or humor to their life,
nice.
I really enjoy that. I really relish that aspect of it.
So you must have been, since you said you want to bring joy to people's lives and make them laugh. I'm sure you were using the Commanders as your theme. Not last year now, but before that, I'm sure they were a theme of butter jokes.
Oh, they were a big theme of butter jokes. And your former owner, when he was on the run in Turk and Caicos running from those subpoenas, that was that was always comedy. That was always comedy, But other than that, though, I mean, y'all turn the corner. There's nothing to laugh at now, man. I mean,
so now your team now are the butter
the laughing
jokes.
Stock.
Absolutely,
yes.
Jerry Jones and company.
Oh gosh, I think the running joke is we're going to be in the Super Bowl this year. Every year we. Year.
See. Listen, man. I said this, my dude. I'm gonna bring him on the show, show him some love, bring him in. That cowboy chatter is a little much.
Why security at the door, Lake? Can you tell security to leave the door, please?
So around the area, like where do you perform? Like where can people see your stuff?
You can catch me down at Artemis Lounge on Tuesdays on 14th Street.
Okay.
Also Nottingham's and Columbia. I have a set there on Wednesday nights, and then and you can catch my IG, Ed the Coach K, and I hope to be on the DC Improv coming up in the next couple weeks.
So what kind of stuff you talk about? I mean, you talk politics, religion, all kinds of stuff. It's whatever.
It's whatever, whatever's on the docket, whatever is has the vibe of the people. What's going on in the streets? What's going on in politics? Politics is always it's hilarious.
I mean,
this
is the world's capital, basically, right here where we live. We took that for granted growing up.
We did.
Because when I moved away and went to Florida, and I was in West Virginia. I mean, you realize like, man, I grew up in D.C.,
Yes.
you know, and like, you know, I've been inside the monument one time in my life. My grandmother took me there. We had no desire, like, you know, my father worked at the Pentagon. My mom worked off of K Street.
Wow.
We had no desire to go downtown ever. You wanted to avoid the traffic. Now, downtown is like the place to be now.
I mean, the only time we used to go downtown probably hit the club, unfortunately.
That was it. That was it.
And I mean, we had all these great museums, all these great monuments and sites, and we took advantage of it, but we did not take advantage of it.
Yeah, man, it's a thing. It really is, and to see the city the way it is now, it's like it's changed so much.
It has.
You know, when we grew up, it was Chocolate City. You know, I kind of say maybe it's more like Caramel City now.
Yeah,
you know,
like cookies and cream.
Yeah, cookies and cream. It's a big mixture of folks now, and I'm okay with that. You know, it's a melting pot. It's okay. Anything that's going to bring money to the city, like this stadium that's coming in a couple years, and the stadium's going to be better than Jerry's World, by the way.
I heard y'all going to try to make it better than
No,
Jerry's World.
It won't be any try.
Y'all going to have Final Fours here, and
of course.
You got to have it on the roof though if you want a Super Bowl.
Well, no, they're going to have it's going to be a dome stadium, but it's not going to be a retractable roof. It's going to be like a glass stadium.
Okay.
Ironically,
you couldn't afford the retractable, huh?
Nah, it's not that. See, there you go. It's what it is if you have a retractable roof, your stadium has to be a certain size.
Okay.
And it has to be one of those monster like Jerry World stadiums. The problem is when you have those big stadiums, you don't have a home field advantage. And I'm sure you should know that. Your Cowboys don't have a home field advantage.
No, we don't. After losing to Green Bay at home, I don't even want to speak on that. But
that's what I'm saying. So you kind of shrink the stadiums down. 70,000, I think, is the ideal stadium in the NFL. And it'll assure that you have more of your fans in that stadium. And I think Josh Harrison and crew, they're smart enough to understand that. So unlike some folks in Dallas. So.
Well, they better make sure they keep the money because, like you said, Terry needs a check. Terry needs a check. I heard earlier on the show, I heard you talking about my man Terry, Scary Terry. And
he's going to get paid.
He is.
He's going to get paid. Would you give a discount, though?
I would give a hometown discount to these guys, the Commanders. I mean, tell you the truth though, I mean, if Brandon Ayuk is making $30 million,
thank you.
Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Waddle's making 28.
Thank you.
And Terry has had 5 consecutive years of 1,000 yards
with 50 quarterbacks.
With 50, and as soon as he gets a great quarterback, look what happens: 13 touchdowns. 13?
I bet you if you asked Terry to name 10 quarterbacks that threw him the ball, he probably couldn't even do it because it's just been so many coming in there.
Yeah.
And now the fact that he had his best season with Jaden last year, that tells you, that's a tandem that's going to be something to be reckoned with. Yes. And then you add in Deebo Samuel, that's going to be something really frightening. So I think Terry might do a hometown discount. I know if he's listening, you don't want to hear that. What you doing, Lake? What you saying? But I think, after a while you got to ask that question, money wise. If you, I know people out there right now working or they're listening, they're probably going to say, what are you talking about, Lake? But I was going to say, what's $1 million?
Yeah.
I mean that, if you get $30 million or if you get $35 million, that's a big difference. But if it's 36 and 35 and you have to finagle that one, I think you can do that.
I think so too. But you got to worry about these taxes too. These taxes
I'm telling you, man, people
crossing them up.
People don't realize, and I hate to air it out there, but we were talking about it.
Yeah.
When you play for the Commanders, you're paying taxes everywhere. Yes. You're paying the state of Maryland because you play there.
Don't live in Virginia.
you right, and then you're paying the city of Ashburn. Mm-hmm. You're paying Loudoun County taxes, the number one wealthiest county in the United States for like the last 10 years running. You're paying Virginia taxes. And then people don't realize when you play away games, you're paying taxes for the states you play in.
See,
people don't know those
things.
People
don't see those things.
Yeah, so it's a real
34 million can turn into 28 real quick.
Real quick. And you wonder why people fight for that last dollar because totally it could be gone just like that. So look, let's do this. Yeah. I'm gonna have some fun with you now because you're a comedian and I like history. I try to do my research. And,
all right.
Make sure I'm prepared. But in this regard, I love comedy.
Okay.
So I want to ask you to give me You just gave me your Mount Rushmore of NFL players, even though I was kind of questionable. It was a little suspect Mount Rushmore, folks.
Tony D, you know.
He had Drew Hill and Tony Dorsett on his Mount Rushmore. If I ever visited that location, like if it was a real Mount Rushmore with rocks and stuff, I think the faces would have been falling off that Mount Rushmore. that would have been like, what's that? So we're gonna do something. We're gonna do something real here. I want to get your Mount Rushmore of comedians.
Ooh, comedians.
Since this is what you do, we'll see if you are a historian of your own craft.
Well, I have to go number one, Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor. That's safe.
He is one of the funniest guys. He put a lot of work in, and he really developed the craft and brought people along all the way.
Okay, so that's fair.
That's my number one.
And I grew up in my house. My parents were, they were listening to some Richard Pryor, and I may have shocked some people just now. What? Your mom was listening to Richard Pryor? Yeah, she was. She absolutely was.
Richard Pryor had church ladies listening to him. So I mean,
and then he was in his movies. I remember The Toy and all these other movies. So yeah, he definitely was a pioneer in a lot of ways.
Yes. And then of course, I have to go number two, my boy Eddie Murphy.
Okay, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, and speaking of Richard, he brought Richard back on for Harlem Nights,
and that was a great movie.
Great movie.
One of my favorite movies of all time, actually, is Harlem Nights. And you look at Eddie Murphy's body of work; it's still going on. Actually, we sat down. My better half me. We sat down the other night to watch Beverly Hills Cop 2. I didn't even know that was out.
Oh, okay.
It's on Netflix. I think it was made specifically for Netflix, but it's actually not bad.
It wasn't? I got to check that out.
Well, we fell asleep in like first 25 minutes, but it was a lot going on.
Because we old. Sorry, late.
Right.
We fall asleep on movies.
It was after 10, so it was like night. So Eddie Murphy, I definitely can concur on that one. There is one guy, I'm not going to say it because I want to see who your other two are.
Okay.
But he's from the area, so I want to see if he gets any love from you. So we'll see.
From the area,
yeah, we'll see.
This is when it can get a little bit convoluted because everybody has their own opinion of who's funny, who's not funny.
Okay,
but I have to go number three. I have to go with Chris Rock. Chris Rock is one of my favorites. I think I love his delivery. He's been putting in the work for years, decades now, and I fell into a little slump a little bit with this guy named Smith, but I feel sorry for the brother about that, but I love some Chris Rock.
Let me ask you that.
Yes.
When that happened, because I remember I was a morning anchor for ABC in West Virginia when that happened, and I had to report on it almost every day. When I first saw that happen, I didn't think it was real.
Me either.
So you thought, as a comedian, thought that was a skit?
I thought it was staged.
Oh,
I thought it was staged when it first occurred.
Because I couldn't believe, there's no way he went up there and slapped him.
No way.
Yeah, so that was bad. I lost a lot of respect
black
for
crime, and I was like, yes, I think he did too.
And it's still, he's trying to recover from it, and everybody makes mistakes. That's what we have to do. As God-fearing people, you give people second chances, but that was rough, man.
But now I think he's doubling down on it, Lake. He dropped some new song and he has a lyric about him going on stage. I'm like, come on, Will. Yeah.
Okay.
We can move on.
All right. So who's your fourth person?
Now here's a guy that's definitely going to be controversial a little bit, but I find his humor to be very funny and very risque. Is Bill Burr.
What?
Bill Burr.
Really?
Yes. I think he has been putting in work since he had hair. Now he is hairless like me and my friend over here.
Yeah, hey, man, come on.
And Bill Burr, man, I think he's hilarious. He was talking about how white people are ashy. He said that's why they're all so angry. Y'all are dry. He said y'all need some lotion. And he said he had a sister that he was dating his sister, and he was like, "Oh, you're ashy." He was like, "What are you talking about? I'm white. I can't be ashy." And he was like, "Yes, you are." She scribed dry in my arm. That's what Bill Burr said.
I'm gonna have to check him out.
So
I'm gonna have to check him out.
He is a very funny guy.
So do you have like an honorable mention, like a Red Fox or?
You know what? I love Red Fox. I'm more of a TV guy for the Red Fox. Like Sanford and Son.
Sanford and Son.
I mean, I listened to some of his old. I've heard some of his old records. But you know, when it comes to that type of style, the old school style, I really respect those guys. But they just, you know, they just don't hit me like these new guys have hit me.
So the one guy I was, you know, wanting to see if you threw on there, and maybe over the last, you know, I don't know, maybe last decade.
I think he's gonna be a TV guy. You about to say?
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, it is. And I mean, I'm thinking maybe over the last decade or so, it's kind of tailed down a little bit career wise for him. But Martin.
Oh,
because Martin's from the area.
He's from the area.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, but body of work wouldn't get him there because he was on the fast track. You know, when he had the show Martin and he was doing his stand-ups.
You know what? Martin I felt has elevated his game to such a superstardom when it comes to his acting and everything else. His show that he kind of leaves the stand-up. He kind of dwarfs the stand-up.
He kind of went straight Hollywood.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know.
But I mean, so would you? I guess you would say that about Eddie then. Eddie is like he left the stand-up stuff and he went straight
But
Hollywood.
You know what? The one thing about Eddie is I think maybe he hit me different because when I saw Delirious, when I went to the actual movie theater and saw his stand-up, it kind of hit me different than I guess other comedians that I've seen in the past.
Well, I mean, he's funny.
You know? He's hilarious.
That's the thing. I mean, growing up and seeing him, I mean, people don't remember this. You remember him on Saturday Night Live when he did Buckwheat and Hot Tub and all that stuff?
Too Hot in the Hot Tub?
Yeah, man. Those were like, it was
Mr. Rogers?
Yeah, I mean.
Would you be mine? Would you be mine?
Those are classic things, man.
Yes.
And I think when you, a couple of the guys you named, when you named Chris Rock, Chris Rock came from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Another guy. I mean, I think if you can make your name on that show, because it's all improv stand-up right there, that's the thing. So let me ask you.
I thought you were going to mention Dave Chappelle. Like, you know, he's a DC guy.
Dave Chappelle's from DC, too. You're right. We've got some home run hitters from DC.
And you know a funny story about Martin Lawrence is our buddy that used to work at Kmart at Kennedy, Scott Robinson. Rest
in peace, Scott.
He came to school one day and said, I got the funniest guy that I clean floors with at Kmart, and he's going to move to Hollywood. His name Martin.
And it was Martin Lawrence.
It was Martin Lawrence.
Are you
out
kidding
PG
me?
County. He was out there working
me?
at Kmart, mopping the floors at nighttime. And he said he's moving to LA and he's gonna be a comedian. This dude's gonna make it.
And you folks and young folks, you did you hear they were mopping floors at Kmart? You gotta do what you gotta do, man, to live your dream out.
You do.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
And then I see you. We were at, just so everyone knows, Crossover Meats, which is our presenting sponsor for the Lake Lewis Jr. Show here on WOL. They had a big event. They were part of the DC barbecue cook-off, and we were down there. It was hot. It was over 100 degrees.
It was hot.
And I ran into my guy right here. And man, just like we're 30 years older from high school.
Yes.
I mean, I think we probably put that out there just now, but we still look the same.
Hey, we do.
I know the hair,
It's like TiVo. We just pause our relationship now. We right back on, man. Talking stuff.
Exactly, So it was just like, just a small world, man.
There was a mean basketball player back in the day, guys. Y'all little left. You right, but you shoot left.
You notice that I'm
I'm
ambidextrous, and people always say, "Man, but you left-handed. You do everything with your left." I do everything with my left except right.
Okay.
And you know why that's the case?
Why is that?
Because when I was a kid in private school, they told me you had to learn to write with your right hand.
Oh,
they didn't know how to show a lefty.
Did they pop you with a ruler or?
Yeah,
because back in our day,
I was getting knuckles.
Yeah. It was rough back in the 80s.
Oh no, I sure was. It was a different type of living back then. You were astute early and often. Yeah, it was a lot of yes sirs, no ma'ams, but just to see like, someone that you grew up with, someone that seeing having some success, man. I'm really proud of you.
Well, thank you,
and it's good to see, man. And I understand with what I do. I run into a lot of people all the time, and first thing they say to me is, "You haven't changed," and I'm like, Thank God, because first of all, I say this all the time too. My parents are up there upstairs, and I always say they have the best seat in the house, so I can't disappoint.
No, you can't. You can't, man. You can't. They always looking down, making sure you stay on the straight and narrow.
Always. So look, before we still have a couple minutes left. Sure. I do want to get your take on. We're gonna bring it back to the sports world.
Okay, let's do that. Later.
And I need you to be realistic here. Okay. Because we understand no Cowboys fans normally aren't realistic about things.
We're not.
So I do want to get your take. Do you feel like, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
Which team's closer to a Super Bowl, the Cowboys or the Commanders?
Oh, man, it's not Commanders all day.
Oh, so you said it.
I'm realistic.
Okay.
I'm
see,
realistic,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm not living in Jerry world, nothing like that.
Because that was going to jeopardize you. I'm thinking in my mind, his next answer is going to be, it's going to determine if you ever sit back in the studio.
I saw that. I saw security right here at the door too. So I made sure I answered this correctly.
So you do feel like Washington's close?
Oh, definitely, man. I mean, they were almost a touchdown away from beating Detroit, and with that young core of talent they have right now. But let me ask you this: what do you think about their running game? I mean, am I throwing,
Good point.
Because I feel like they reset with Terry and Debo and Jalen. But Brian Robinson, man, I think he needs to have a great year this year.
Well, I think Brian Robinson's going to have some competition because they drafted Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in the 7th round from Arizona. And
is he a speedster? What's he like?
4.3 guy, and he's a cutback runner. And then they signed a free agent by the name of Demetric Felton, who's been in the league for like 4 or 5 years, but he's always been a serviceable backup. But he's another 4.3 guy.
Yeah.
So they clearly got speed to go along with Brian and Austin Eckler. So I think that right now, if those guys have a camp, like if one of them shows a special ability in camp, I think both of them have an opportunity to be on the roster. I think Ja'Cory definitely will make the roster, but I think Demetric has a chance to maybe move a Chris Rodriguez, or who I like, by the way. I think there's other guys that, they have a kid, Wiley, who was on the practice squad last year. I mean, McNichols is there. So they've got
still have Eckler.
Yeah, Eckler, obviously. So they have some backs. So
okay.
I think the running back room will be much better this year. But naturally, we got to see what it's like. You play football, you got to see what it's like in the pads.
Yes.
But you know what? Also, on a funny note, I look at these guys now and they talk about how hot it is and how hard the practices are, and the practices are like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then I'm thinking to myself, we used to do 2 a days, man. 2 a days in that heat, like DC heat.
People did not care about heat back in the day.
Nah, you didn't know any better.
They're like, heat stroke. Oh, man, just throw some water on you. Fine. They ain't believe in heat stroke.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, when you think about it, Ed, it was wild that we were doing that. And it really wasn't a long layover. I think we had a morning practice and then we came back early afternoon. Hence, early afternoon when the sun is blazing.
Like 3 or 2.
Yeah, man.
Yes. And there was no such thing as a concussion.
No.
Nobody got concussed. Just get up.
You had a headache.
You're good. You had a headache.
You had a headache. And people were taking Tylenols. I mean, and I know we shouldn't be making light of it because it's a serious issue.
It is.
But you didn't know any of those things back in the day.
And that's the thing.
So I'm sure you probably already do. You should do your segments on that. So look, my friend, we got to wrap up, man.
Okay,
we got to sign out, but I appreciate you. Yeah, appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Appreciate everybody out there for checking us out, and we'll be back here same time, same place next week, and you'll never know what we're going to have on the show, so you just got to tune in and find out. But have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next week.